All right. Good morning, students. Sorry. Good evening, students. I hope I'm audible. Shubhranil, आवाज आ रही है? Good evening. Right. So, in our previous lecture, we were talking about the political scenario across India during the post-Mauryan age. Now we need to take a look at the administrative, economic, and social changes, beginning with the administrative changes during the post-Mauryan age. Right? क्या क्या देखने के लिए मिलता है हमको? First of all, we see the emergence of sub-statehood. मतलब that within the state, sub-states would be created, meaning level of centralization would be lower and feudal elements would be much stronger, much more visible. Why was this? This was a result of the process of state creation. Mauryans ने क्या policy adopt किया था? Of uprooting all the local rulers. The polities of the post-Mauryan age, empires of the post-Mauryan age were more decentralized in nature. Instead of uprooting them, they simply subordinated them, transformed them into vassal states. Okay? So within the state, sub-states started to emerge. Write down. The Shakas, Kushanas, and Satvahanas. The Shakas, Kushans, and Satvahans defeated the local rulers, but did not annex their territory. Full stop. Rather, the local rulers were subordinated and transformed into provincial governors. With hereditary titles and privileges. With hereditary titles and privileges. Full stop. This resulted, sub point लिख लो, this resulted in the creation of super states. Sorry, this resulted in the creation of sub-states. In the creation of sub-states within the super state. Within the super state. ठीक है, तो एक ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इनोवेशन देखने के लिए मिलेगा. सेकंड, from now on the rulers began assuming high sounding or pompous titles such as Rajadhiraj, Maharaj, Mahashatrapa, Shahun Shaho, etc. What do you think was the need for this? Because within every state now there was not a single Raja, there were several Rajas, right? One of them was the actual emperor, the actual king of kings. Therefore, there was a need to distinguish the emperor from his subordinate rajas, subordinate rulers. That is why this kind of administrative innovation is going to be made. Write down. The rulers of the post-Mauryan age began assuming exalted titles such as, and write these, Raja Dhiraj, Maharaj, Mahashatrapa, Shahun Shaho, etc. Full stop. This was due to the presence of subordinate rulers within the superstates. As a result of which kings were compelled to assert their superiority through such titles. ठीक है. And thirdly, we see for the first time state formation being led by which group? Aryans or non-Aryans? Non-Aryans, या तो tribals हैं या foreigners हैं, whether it be the Satavahanas or the Sangam dynasty rulers or the foreigners, right? तो Indian case में tribals हैं, foreigners तो foreigners ही हैं, all of them are non-Aryans. However, they face a big hurdle. क्या? हाँ, their legitimacy is weak because according to the Varna Ashram Dharma system, only the upper Varnas, Aryan Varnas, have the right to rule, either Brahmin or Kshatriyas. So a number of new administrative innovations are going to be made to overcome this hurdle, right? So questionable legitimacy of non-Aryan rulers led to further administrative innovations. Namely, कुशान्स क्या करेंगे? They would claim divine origin of kingship. कैसे? They would assume the title Devputra. ठीक है? Now, this is seen as an effort by the Kushan rulers not only to legitimize their rule in the eyes of the people, but also to marginalize the Brahmins who have traditionally enjoyed the responsibility of legitimizing the king's rule. Okay? Other players, how are they going to overcome this hurdle, overcome this challenge? Even though they are non-Aryan, they are going to claim Brahmin status. Such as Satavahanas and the Sangam rulers. Further, This Brahmin status is going to be confirmed through what? Land grants. ठीक है? So they entered into a contract with the priestly class that if the ruler gives them land grants, huge parcels of land, and continues to favor them, they are not going to resist their Brahmin status or their legitimacy. ठीक है? So this is the idea over here. Write down. लिखो. Since for the first time a large number of states were created by non-Aryan groups such as tribals and foreigners, comma, they needed to secure legitimacy in the eyes of the people and the priestly class. In the eyes of the people and the priestly class. So stop. Sub point लिखो. As a result, comma, the idea of divine origin of kingship attained a new level of maturity. As the Kushans began calling themselves Devputra, within brackets, son of God. Full stop. Next point. At the same time, comma, this may also have been an attempt by the rulers to marginalize the priestly class in political affairs. Next point. Some post-Mauryan rulers, such as the Satvahans and the Sangam rulers, overcame the hurdle of non-Aryan origin by claiming Brahmin status. Full stop. Next point. Another important tool to secure the support of the priestly class was land grants. ठीक है? So this is what we see over here. Now How had these states come into power? Either through rebellion or through conquest. Could these be possible without having a strong military? No. So since the very beginning, the military would play a very important role in political affairs, right? Further, military governorship is also going to be a very important component of the administrative structure of the post-Mauryan age. Why? Because since the military is playing such an important role, would it be satisfied only sitting at the frontiers and guarding them? No, it would want its own share of power, its own share of resources, right? So this is another reality, that military governorship is going to be visible in all the post-Mauryan states. In the case of the Shakas, we had Kshatrapas. In the case of the Satvahanas, we had military officials known as Gomilkas. In the case of the Sangam polities, we had military chiefs, feudal chiefs known as the Velir. कल बताया था ना Velir, Vendar and Velir. So this is what we are going to see. So write down. The military played an important role in administration. Played an important role in administration. Full stop. This was partly due to its role in the process of state formation and partly due to the need to establish and maintain control over tribal areas and rural regions. Full stop. Subpoint. As a result, the institution of military governorship emerged as a universal feature of the post-Mauryan administrative structure. समझ में आया ना ये? सब पॉइंट लिखो. The Indo-Greeks, Shakas and Kushans had Kshatrapas. Indo-Greeks, Shakas and Kushans had Kshatrapas. Next subpoint. The Satvahanas had an official known as Gomilka, who was a garrison commander in a tribal or frontier region. Next subpoint. The Vendars of the Sangam region, Vendars of the Sangam region ruled with the cooperation, the Vendars, VENDAR, Vendars of the Sangam region, ruled with the cooperation of powerful local military chiefs known as Valirs. ठीक है. Next development, next administrative innovation, that is land grants. Who were these land grants made to? The priestly class. What was the logic behind these land grants? To secure the support of the priestly class and get the necessary political legitimacy for them. This was the political logic behind it. Any other type of logic? Yes? Kya? Economic logic. Land grants were the medium to expand agriculture, bring new land under the plow. So agricultural expansion was to be done through these land grants, right? And इसका एक social logic भी है. क्या? What was the position of the priestly class in society? Topmost position होता था. What function did they play? They were the regulators of education, religion, and most importantly, ideology. They were the people who determined what the values that the society should follow are. And if an alliance emerges between the priestly class and the rulers, वो किस तरह का वैल्यू सिस्टम क्रिएट करेंगे? वन विच इज फेवरेबल टू द रूलर और अनफेवरेबल टू द रूलर? Favorable to the ruler, right? So they would become the common link between the actual taxpayers, the actual cultivators, and the ruling class. They would be the first line of defense against any rebellious tendencies against the rulers, right? So social integration and stratification में they would play a very important role. Why is stratification important? Because the nature of the relationship between the upper varnas and the lower varnas किस तरह का था? It was extractive, exploitative in nature. And if the lower varnas did not have any social controls over them, any ideological controls over them, what would they have done? They would have easily rebelled, tried to overthrow or at least disrupt the ruling class and the upper varnas, right? So if they did not have these ideological shackles, that would have been a big danger. And the best way to place these shackles upon them, convince them that they are naturally inferior, that it is their duty to keep serving the upper varnas and the ruling class. ठीक है? So land grant से ये सारे functions solve हो रहे थे, ये सारे problems solve हो रहे थे. Write down. A prominent administrative innovation of the post-Mauryan age, innovation of the post-Mauryan age was the introduction of land grants for the priestly class. Full stop. Sub point. As the state society expanded, comma, state formation took place in new areas with new groups emerging as the rulers. Emerging as the rulers. Full stop. Next subpoint. They depended upon the priestly class. They depended upon the priestly class to legitimize their rule. Full stop. In the same point, continue. Land grants performed the function of a glue that cemented a reciprocal relationship between the rulers and the priestly class. And the priestly class. Full stop. Next subpoint. Most land grants were made in uninhabited or remote regions. And became the chief instrument to expand agriculture. Full stop. Thus, land grants emerged as an important mechanism to augment state resources. To augment state resources. Full stop. Next subpoint. By aligning the interests of the rulers and priests, land grants permitted the rulers to mobilize the ideological and social power of the priestly class. Full stop. Since the priests were the custodians of religion, society, law, education, religion, society, law, education, and the value system, comma, the right, they made changes to these systems so as to favor their allies, namely the ruling class. In this way, land grants also played the role of an instrument of social integration, stratification, and ideological control. ठीक है? Now, since many of these states, both Indian as well as foreign, came from tribal backgrounds, some tribal elements are going to be visible here. So, क्या देखने के लिए मिलेगा हमें? What would be the tribal influence in administration? The growing feudalism. The tribal administrative and political structure is not as highly layered nor as centralized as full-fledged state societies, right? The tribal chiefs depend on the cooperation of other clan chiefs, and thus they have to give them some privileges, some freedom, some autonomy, some powers, etc. Same thing is going to be visible over here. So although these tribal polities created huge empires who had a monarch, a hereditary monarch, some of the tribal values are going to be carried over, resulting in the emergence of feudalism. For example, we see Kshatrapas, Gomilkas, Velirs, etc. Okay, write down. Owing to the tribal background of many post-Mauryan polities, tribal conventions became synthesized with the new monarchical structure. Resulting in the emergence of feudal elements such as, वही वाले नाम लिख लो, क्षत्रपास, गोमिल्कास, वेलिर्स, etc. क्षत्रपास, गोमिल्कास, वेलिर्स, etc. Now, in tribal societies, generally, what is the position of women? Relatively better than full-fledged state societies, especially in the case of ancient India from the later Vedic age onwards. And this better condition of women is also going to be seen in those polities which emerged from a tribal background. So, for example, even though both the Sangam rulers as well as the Satavahanas claimed Brahmin status, women enjoyed a great degree of respectability in both. How do we know this? Satavahanas mein, the rulers were named after their mothers. In the absence of the rulers, or in the case that the rulers were incapacitated or incapable of ruling, also discharged many important administrative functions. They had inscriptions written in their own name, which claim that they also made huge donations. Satvahan period के बहुत सारे donations they are ascribed to women, not only women rulers but also ordinary women, meaning that they had the right to own property, they had the right to discharge their wealth as they saw fit. That means they would have been participating in trade, commerce, manufacturing, etc. इस सब में भी participate कर रहे होंगे. Similarly, from Sangam literature, we get references to women wrestlers, women warriors, women scholars, women poets. Many Sangam scholars were themselves women, right? Sangam poets were themselves women, women astrologers, women priests also, and even bodyguards who were women. Okay, so all this reflects their tribal background. So write down. Similarly, हाँ, similarly, ट्राइबल बैकग्राउंड में ही, इसी में ही, ठीक है, ट्राइबल इन्फ्लुएंस. Similarly, it may also be a result of the tribal roots that women enjoyed a relatively higher position in society as compared to Brahmanical polities. इसके अंदर ही सब पॉइंट लिख लो. एग्जाम्पल, सातवाहन rulers were named after their mothers. Full stop. Next sub point. In case a Satvahan king was unable to rule or incapacitated, comma, sovereign functions were performed by the queen or the queen mother, by the queen or the queen mother. जो नासिक inscription है of Queen Mother Gautami Balasri, she begins by paying salutations to the ruler Gautami Putra Satkarni and says that he is a living king. Why do you think she had क्वीन मदर? क्वीन मदर, तो क्वीन मदर का मतलब जो राजमाता हो जाती है उसको क्वीन मदर बोल देते हैं, ठीक है. तो वी आर नॉट सेइंग किंग्स मदर, वी आर सेइंग क्वीन मदर, ठीक है. हाँ, तो why do you think she felt the need to tell people that he is still a living king? Probably he had fallen extremely ill or was away in war and अफवाह आ रही थी कि वो वहां पे खत्म हो चुका है, right? And that is why she had to clarify over here. And while he was not in a position to rule, who was holding the command? The queen mother Gautami Balasri, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट सब पॉइंट लिखो. Similarly, many women donors made huge donations of land, cash, and cattle to the priestly class during the Satvahan period. Full stop. This indicates that women had the right to own, inherit, and discharge property. Full stop. They also participated in trade, money lending, commerce, and manufacturing. ठीक है. Next sub point, Sangam literature. Sangam literature informs us about women warriors, wrestlers, astrologers, scholars, dancers, musicians, painters, and royal bodyguards. ठीक है. So these were the administrative innovations which took place during the post-Mauryan age. Clear है picture? Take down question. On the basis of archaeological and literary evidence, highlight the administrative changes that took place during the post-Mauryan age. On the basis of archaeological and literary evidence, highlight the administrative changes that took place during the post-Mauryan age. हो जाएगा? ठीक है. Now we need to take a look at the economic changes. What is the picture that we get from post-Mauryan economy? That of economic growth or contraction? Growth. Both the agricultural as well, both the rural as well as urban economy was expanding rapidly. In the case of rural economy, agriculture was the mainstay of the economy. And why was it expanding? Not only because of agricultural expansion due to land grants, but the cultivation of a large variety of new crops also. Okay. And in the case of the rural economy, it was urban economy, it was expanding because of the growth of trade, especially foreign trade, and also proliferation of crafts. So new types of goods were being produced. How were the two linked with each other? New kinds of cash crops were being cultivated and they became the raw material for the new crafts that were emerging in the cities. Okay, write down. The post-Mauryan age, was characterized by rapid economic expansion. As a result of rapid economic expansion, both urban and rural growth. as a result of both urban and rural growth. आगे लिखो. Give the heading agriculture, subheading agriculture. Write down. Through land grants, comma, cultivation expanded across a broader area. Full stop. What is the proof that land grants were taking place? These land grants were recorded in the form of inscriptions. ठीक है? Write down sub point. Contemporary donative inscriptions inform us that at least half the donated land was cultivable wasteland, which had to be developed by the donees themselves. People who are receiving these donations. Okay? By the donees themselves. Next sub point. Even the Manusmriti advises the Brahmins to accept such lands. Clear hai? So this was one method of expansion of agriculture. Another method to expand as well as improve agriculture was to expand irrigation facilities, artificial irrigation. इस पीरियड में होगा. Yes. तो महामेघवाहन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हमने देखा that Hathi Gumfa inscription claims that he repaired all the embankments on the Mahanadi originally constructed by Mahapadmananda. Sudarshan Lake was also repaired by Rudradaman of the Western Kshatrapa Shaka dynasty, right? So this indicates that at this point of time, not only was new land being brought under the plow, but existing land के ऊपर भी नए इरिगेशन वर्क्स बनाए जा रहे थे. जो एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड है उसके ऊपर नए एग्रीकल्चरल इरिगेशनल वर्क्स बनाए जा रहे थे. एंड नॉट ओनली दैट, बिकॉज ऑफ द कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ कैनाल्स, cultivation also became possible in new areas where it was not possible earlier. So this prepared the way for further expansion of agriculture. Write down. लिखो सब पॉइंट. This period also witnessed agricultural expansion through the expansion of irrigation facilities. Also witnessed agricultural expansion through the expansion of irrigation facilities. Full stop. This process was facilitated both by state and individual agency or initiative, both by state or individual initiative. That means state was also involved in the process of irrigation expansion, and individuals, private individuals, were also contributing to the expansion of irrigation facilities. इसके अंदर सब पॉइंट लिखो, a couple of sub points. The inscriptions of Kharvel and Rudradaman refer to the repair, construction, and expansion of irrigation works such as lakes, dams, embankments, and canals. Full stop. Next sub point. Normative texts such as the Manusmriti encourages the digging of wells and construction of dams and reservoirs as acts of piety. Piety. If you do these things, you'll get punya, sabab milega. Okay? As acts of piety. Full stop. Next sub point. A large number of donative inscriptions refer to the construction of tanks and reservoirs by individuals and guilds. ठीक है, तो ये हो गया the expansion of agriculture through the expansion of irrigation facilities and land grants. Next, what do we have to address? Another factor for agriculture or rural growth was rising crop diversity. So write down. During this period, comma, certain cash crops were introduced and crop diversity was certainly enhanced. Full stop. Sub point लिखो. The Milind Panho, you remember this book, na? The Milind Panho refers to two varieties of rice. Sali and Kudumbam. Sali was regarded to be fit for royal consumption. Means it was of extremely high quality. Sali being regarded as fit for royal consumption, and Kudumbam was consumed by common people. Next point, we have further evidence of the commercialization of agriculture. लिखो. An inscription at Nasik. An inscription. Next point, लिखो. An inscription at Nasik interpreted by D.D. Kosambi. Interpreted by D.D. Kosambi gives evidence of a large coconut plantation. Full stop. Next point. According to Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, according to Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, Kerala was a major center for which spice? Black pepper. For black pepper plantation. Next point. Pliny reports the presence of a huge sugarcane plantation. Huge sugarcane plantation in the Ganga Valley. Next main point लिखो. With the expansion of artificial irrigation, comma, intensive agriculture became possible outside the fertile North Indian alluvial plains. Outside the fertile North Indian alluvial plains in regions such as the Deccan, Malwa, Saurashtra, in regions such as the Deccan, Malwa, Saurashtra, and southern Rajasthan. Full stop. सब पॉइंट लिखो. The beginning of agriculture in the Deccan Lava Plateau belt or Deccan Lava Plateau region must have facilitated the cultivation of which important cash crop? डेक्कन लावा प्लेटू रीजन में कॉटन. वहां का सॉइल ही जो है उसको ब्लैक कॉटन सॉइल बोलते हैं. ऑफ कॉटन. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट लिखो, the next main point, the legal machinery of this period also encouraged agriculture, also encouraged agriculture. Full stop. Sub point. The Manusmriti recognizes land grants to Brahmins and Buddhists as a legitimate transfer of wealth, as a legitimate transfer of wealth. Full stop. Next point. Further, the Manusmriti also emphasizes that the person who first cultivates a parcel of land is its real owner, is its real owner. ठीक है, so what is this encouraging? People to go and stake claim over more and more parcels of land and cultivate it. ये कर दिया तो they automatically become the landowners in the eyes of the law. Next sub point, it prescribes heavy punishments including the death penalty to those who violate property rights of Brahmins, and sorry, or property rights of Brahmins, or knowingly destroy an irrigation work, जैसे कि कोई डैम बना है तो उसको तोड़ दिया, कोई एम्बैंकमेंट है तो उसमें छेद कर दिया, कोई वेल है तो उसको पॉइजन कर दिया, कोई टैंक है तो उसको ड्रेन कर दिया, ये सब करने पे सीधे डेथ पेनल्टी प्रिस्क्राइब करता है। ठीक है, तो ये हो गया चेंजेस इन एग्रीकल्चर। क्वेश्चन लिखो, एग्जामिन the changes in post-Mauryan rural economy on the basis of literary and archaeological evidence. Full stop. (200 words, 15 marks. तो ये फीचर्स तो आपको बताने ही पड़ेंगे क्या क्या चेंजेस हुए, साथ में इसको एग्जामिन भी करना है, राइट? what are we going to do over here? दो चीजें. First of all, we'll need to talk about wealth distribution at the rural level, and secondly, we'll need to examine the link between the rural and urban economy. What was the nature of wealth distribution? We find a mixed picture. क्या? That through land grants, large amounts of wealth were being transferred to whom? To the priestly class. So stop. Further, the priestly class was also being favored through tax exemptions. ठीक है? But at the same time, what do we see? That even the normative Brahmanical texts recognize the legitimacy of claims of ownership for those people who actually cultivate the land. ठीक है? Land ownership was actually in the hands of the cultivator. ठीक है? And इतना बाइनरी पिक्चर नहीं था कि रूरल लैंडस्केप में टू डिस्टिंक्ट क्लासेस वर क्रिएटेड, वेल्दी ब्राह्मण क्लास एंड पुअर शूद्रा और वैश्या क्लास. ठीक है? हाँ, शूद्रास अगर कल्टीवेट करना चाहें किसी न्यू पार्सल ऑफ लैंड को, state is going to assist them also. It is also going to dig wells for them, protect their ownership rights, and even the Manusmriti realizes that irrespective of whether these people are Brahmin or non-Brahmin, they have the right to own land, inherit land, sell it off, exchange it, whatever they want to do with their land, they can do it. ठीक है? हाँ, but they should never interfere with the land grants being given to the ब्राह्मण्स. वो ऑब्वियसली ब्राह्मणिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से लिख रहा था, तो ब्राह्मण्स के इंटरेस्ट को सबसे प्रायोरिटी देगा. बट दिस डज नॉट मीन दैट द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द अदर नॉन ब्राह्मणिकल ग्रुप्स वर कंप्लीटली इग्नोर्ड. ठीक है? तो पूरा का पूरा लीगल मशीनरी जो है उसका फोकस किसकी तरफ है? इट इज टुवर्ड्स द एक्सपेंशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज, क्रिएशन ऑफ न्यू रिसोर्सेज. क्लियर? फर्दर वेल्थ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, एक तो ये चीज हो गई कि वेदर द वेल्थ वाज डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड इक्वली और नॉट, तो यहाँ पे एक मिक्स पिक्चर दिखता है. इसके साथ साथ एक ये भी आइडिया आता है, वाज देयर इनफ वेल्थ टू बी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड एट द रूरल लेवल्स और नॉट. तो यहाँ पे हमको क्या देखने के लिए मिलता है? रूरल प्रॉस्पेरिटी और पॉवर्टी? नो, प्रॉस्पेरिटी. सो राइजिंग prosperity. Why? Because of the expansion of, sorry, कहाँ गया? हाँ, because of the expansion of agriculture due to land grants as well as irrigation facilities, but most importantly due to rising crop diversity and the increasing commercialization of agriculture also. So not only was wealth distributed quite evenly within the rural society, obviously element of inequality was there, but the rural society was experiencing unprecedented levels of prosperity. ठीक है? तो एक ये चीज देखने के लिए मिलती है. And what was that which linked the rural and the urban economy? सबसे पहले तो रूरल इकोनॉमी अर्बन इकोनॉमी को सपोर्ट करने के लिए क्या देगा, क्या प्रोवाइड करेगा? फूड सरप्लस, ठीक है. सेकेंडली, ड्यू टू द कमर्शलाइजेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, रॉ मटेरियल. Thirdly, because of rising prosperity, market for urban goods, it would create demand for the urban goods. And fourthly, urban economy यहाँ पे क्या प्रोवाइड करेगा, ये मार्केट के जो डिमांड्स है उसको फुलफिल करेगा. एंड व्हाट वुड बी द कॉमन लिंक बिटवीन द टू, जो एक्सचेंज है उसको फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए क्या इमर्ज होगा, कैश. बार्टर सिस्टम नहीं. नाउ कैश नेक्सस is going to emerge between the cities and the villages. इसके पहले coins currency was limited only to the urban scenario. Villages में उसका काम होता नहीं था. Modern period में the land revenue was also collected in the cash form only, 1/6 of the total produce. Even now it would be collected only in the kind form, 1/6 of the total produce. But now urban economy के साथ exchange would primarily take place through the monetary route, not through the barter system. ठीक है. This is the link between the rural and urban economy. And when you are examining this, so you should always examine it with the perspective of the Mauryan economy in mind. और वो आप यहाँ पे सबसे ज्यादा अच्छे से दिखा सकते हो. क्लियर है. सो फीचर्स के बारे में बताना होगा एंड ये इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स इसके बारे में बताना होगा. क्लियर. तो रूरल इकोनॉमी वी हैव कवर्ड. नाउ urban economy. First we are going to look at crafts production, फिर उसके बाद मॉनेटरी सिस्टम, गिल्ड्स, ट्रेड, ये सब देखना है हमें. ठीक. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल क्राफ्ट प्रोडक्शन. व्हाट डू वी सी? Increase in the number of crafts and also rising specialization of the crafts ecosystem. Meaning not only did specific groups become involved in the production of specific items, specific objects, working with specific materials, but even regional specialization started to take place. Likho. This period witnessed the expansion of crafts. Full stop. In fact, craft proliferation, which had been going on since the beginning of second urbanization, reached its peak. Second urbanization reached its peak. Full stop. The Digha Nikaya, this is part of the Sutta Pitaka. It mentions the presence of 24 crafts in the region of Magad. The Mahavastu, which is a work of the early Post-Mauryan Age, it mentions the presence of 36 crafts. And the Milind Panho, which is also a post-Mauryan work but a little later on, it mentions as many as 75 crafts. So what are we seeing? Clear trend with the passage of time, number of crafts is increasing. ठीक है. तो ये लिख लो. दीघा निकाया 24 crafts, 36 crafts. महावस्तु y नहीं है, u होना चाहिए. महावस्तु हो 75 crafts. full stop. Next main point लिखो. Another aspect of craft production was its rising specialization. Sub point. Different crafts were associated not only with specific groups but also specific regions. Full stop. Sub point. The rising social specialization of crafts is reflected in the proliferation of which groups? तो एक जॉब करने वाले लोग now they are going to start becoming parts of the same caste. ठीक है, earlier they used to be part of the same varna, but क्योंकि अब 75 अलग अलग क्राफ्ट्स हैं तो वो 75 तो 4 वर्नास में फिट होंगे नहीं. So every craft is going to be assigned its own caste और जाति. क्या लिखा है आपने? Of castes or jatis as a social institution. ठीक है. So the concept of castes emerged during the post-Mauryan period due to this craft proliferation. Okay. Next point लिखो. Next main point. Different crafts were also centered in different areas. सब पॉइंट करके लिख लो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल उज्जैन was famous for bead making. Next sub point. Mathura was a prominent center for manufacturing shatak. This is a type of cotton cloth. For manufacturing shatak, within brackets you can write cloth. Magad and Andhra region were famous for iron objects. Were famous for their iron objects. Arikamedu क्या है? अरिकामेडू पौंडीचेरी. ठीक है. It was famous for its cloth dyeing industry. Next sub point. Vidisha was an important center of ivory works. ivory works. Full stop. Amravati was famous for its perfumeries. Or which used perfumeries, which used sandalwood to make various types of incense and oil Next, right. According to next point, according to Pliny the Elder, Gujarat was an important center for, अभी भी गुजरात किसके लिए फेमस है? सूरत, स्टोन्स के लिए, फॉर कटिंग एंड पॉलिशिंग gemstones and jewelry making. Gemstones and jewelry making. Next point. Similarly, according to Periplus, the port of Korkai was famous for Korkai कहाँ पे था? It was the main port of Pandyas. ठीक है? Was famous for pearl fishing. Was famous for pearl fishing. ठीक है? So in the field of craft production, we see a large amount of expansion. Number of crafts has also grown, but also rising regional specialization. Social specialization हमको किससे दिखता है? Caste proliferation, as well as literary references. So all these tell us that the number of crafts was increasing. Regional specialization to literary and archaeological references से मिलता है हमको. These important centers emerged as important cities emerged as important centers for different kinds of crafts. अरे भगत, तो craft production हमने देख लिया है. Now let us look at trade. What do we see? Flourishing state of internal as well as external trade. Factors behind flourishing internal trade: rising agricultural productivity, resulting in greater demand, the emergence of regional states, who were able to provide effective governance and security, who were able to facilitate economic growth and encourage trade and commerce. They were able to bring about monetary proliferation across India and had their own cities, ports, etc. Each of them had. Okay? External trade was growing because of foreign rulers such as the Indo-Greek, Shakas, Kushans, Pahalwas, etc., who could connect India with the wider world. Further, it is also important to know that the geographical area that they controlled was extremely crucial from the point of view of ancient trade. Why? because they were in control of the Silk Route connecting connecting China, India, and the Western world. Further, we also find that this period coincided with the consolidation of powerful empires in other parts of the world who could provide the basic necessary means for stability and economic growth. So, emergence of powerful empires in other parts of the world. Further, some geographic discoveries such as the discovery of the monsoon winds, access to better cartography, courtesy primarily of the Greek explorers who by this point of time had explored each and every corner of Central and Western Asia, and also because of rising tribal migrations. सिल्क रूट शुरू कहां से होता था? चाइना से होता था. And where were all these tribals coming from? From China. So they became the conduit to connect India with China and then China with the rest of the world also. Okay? So through the trade routes traveled by these tribal migrants and with the tribal merchants coming from the tribal background, connectivity became possible. Clear hai? So these were the factors for flourishing internal as well as external trade. I hope this is clear. लिख लीजिए इसको जल्दी से. Trade was a high point of the Post-Mauryan Age. Was a high point of the Post-Mauryan Age. Full stop. This was a period of flourishing internal and external trade. Full stop. Next point. Internal trade expanded rapidly. Internal trade expanded rapidly because of A B C D करके लिख लो. A, rising agricultural productivity. Rising agricultural productivity. Which generated a large surplus and created prosperity along with facilitating crafts production to the expansion of raw material production. To the expansion of raw material production. Full stop. Expansion of raw material production. Next subpoint B. This larger demand, sorry, this wider prosperity created a larger demand for both agricultural produce as well as manufactured goods, which could be facilitated only by trade or only through trade. सी लिखो. इसमें एक और फैक्टर है. It is since regional specialization was a characteristic of the post-Mauryan craft economy, therefore this meant that not all the goods were being produced in all the urban centers in all the cities. Therefore, different cities specialized in the production of specific goods. So how would they fulfill, or how would the residents of those cities and the nearby villages fulfill their demand for those goods which were not produced in those cities? तो बाहर से मंगाएंगे, दूसरी सिटीज से मंगाएंगे. ठीक है, तो सी लिख लो. The regional specialization also played an important role in facilitating trade. Full stop. Local production was not sufficient. Sir. क्या साउंड में कुछ इशू आ रहा है? अच्छा, ओके, सॉरी अबाउट दैट. क्या बोल रहे थे? हाँ, in fulfilling local demand, and thus trade was necessary to fill the gap. Full stop. Next point, C or D. देखो, the consolidation of regional kingdoms with their own economic machinery, production centers, cities, and economic incentives encouraged trade within and outside their kingdoms. Full stop. After all, revenue from trade was an important component of state income. समझ में आया इतना? लास्ट वाला लिखो, ई. Trade was also facilitated by the expansion of the monetary system. Which emerged across all regions of India. And did not remain confined to the urban economy. Full stop. Metallic currency metallic currency, galvanized the wheels, galvanized the wheels of internal trade, galvanize the wheels of internal trade. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो, और सॉरी नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट, एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड, external trade also reached new heights, also reached new heights during this period, during this period, full stop. This was facilitated by ABCD करके A, the presence of powerful foreign ruling groups on India's northwest frontier who controlled the world's most important global trade route, namely the Silk Road, the Silk Road, namely the Silk Road route, Silk Route. Full stop. Next up point B, the Post-Mauryan Age also consolidated, sorry, also coincided with the emergence of powerful empires in other parts of the world, namely the Han Empire of China, the Parthian Empire of Persia, and the Roman Empire in the Mediterranean. Full stop. With this, comma, the different parts of Asia and Europe experienced stability and growth, leading to brisk trade between them, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट सी देखो, the tribal migrations of the Xiongnu, XONGNU, Xiongnu, Wushu, कल बताए थे ये सारे नाम, Wushu, Yuzi and the Shakas across the Eurasian steppe across the Eurasian steppe, opened the trade routes between China and Central Asia, which lay at the crossroads of the ancient Silk Route. Crossroads of the ancient Silk Route. तो चाइना एक कोने में था, इंडिया एक कोने में, पर्शिया एक कोने में, रोम एक कोने में, बीच में क्या था? सेंट्रल एशिया. एंड व्हाट कनेक्टेड चाइना टू सेंट्रल एशिया? इट वाज दीज ट्राइबल माइग्रेशन. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट सब पॉइंट लिखो. तो ऐसे हो गए. डी, द डिस्कवरी ऑफ मॉनसून विंड्स, the discovery of the monsoon winds in the 1st century CE, in the 1st century CE, also facilitated the growth of maritime trade in the Indian Ocean. Full stop. Next लिखो. E, better cartography courtesy of Greek explorers and scholars also made the journey along the Silk Route, more convenient. ठीक है. इंटरनल फैक्टर्स में एक फैक्टर मिस हो गया हमारा, that this was a period when both the common people as well as the rulers were giving huge donations to the Sangha. ठीक है. And what did the Sangha used to do with this wealth? It used to invest it in trade and commerce, in production activities. It emerged as a big banker, big money lender, and a prominent investor. ठीक है. So it emerged as an important engine of economic growth. ठीक है. तो ये भी आप उसमें ऐड कर सकते हो. कितने लिखे थे उसमें? ई तक लिखे थे ना. राइट डाउन. The Sangha emerged as an influential patron of trade. Full stop. The huge donations it was receiving, were invested back into the economy through money lending, back into the economy through money lending and investment. And what prompted the state and the people to start making huge donations towards the Sangha and other religious institutions? क्यों? इसके पहले कम क्यों था और अब ज्यादा क्यों हो जाएगा? ब्राह्मणिज्म में what was the path to salvation before this? उपनिषद क्या बोलते थे? ऑब्टेन नॉलेज. ठीक है, तो उसमें किसी को दान देने की जरूरत है? नहीं जरूरत है. बुद्धिज्म में फॉलो द अष्टांगिक मार्ग. उसमें किसी को दान देने की जरूरत है? नहीं जरूरत है. नाउ व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन? भक्ति इज गोइंग टू रिप्लेस ऑल दिस ज्ञान मार्ग एंड इंडिविजुअल एजेंसी. वहां पे क्या बोलेंगे? दैट जितने भी टेम्पल्स हैं, मठास हैं, संघा है, इनको खूब सारा पैसा डोनेट कीजिए. दे आर गोइंग टू इंश्योर दैट यू रिसीव द स्पिरिचुअल ग्रेस ऑफ गॉड. भगवान का आशीर्वाद तभी मिलेगा जब दान पेटी में 500 रुपए का आप नोट डालोगे. दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द न्यू आर्ग्यूमेंट. एंड दिस इज व्हाई द संघा बिकेम so prosperous during the post-Mauryan period. It was during the post-Mauryan period only that Mahayana Buddhism finally emerged also. ठीक है, write down. The prosperity of the Sangha, उसी में, the prosperity of the Sangha was itself, the prosperity of the Sangha was itself facilitated by the emergence of Mahayana Buddhism and Indian Bhakti, which emphasized upon the importance of Indian Bhakti, which emphasized upon the importance of idol worship and donations. शुभ्रनिल, कौन सा पॉइंट रिपीट करना है? इंटरनल ट्रेड वाला या एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड वाला? पॉइंट नंबर सी. इंटरनल ट्रेड वाला क्या है? सी पॉइंट, रीजनल स्पेशलाइजेशन वाला. Regional specialization also played an important role in facilitating trade. Local production was not sufficient in fulfilling local demand. Thus, trade was necessary to fill the gap. Local production was not sufficient in fulfilling local demand, and thus trade was necessary to fill the gap. तो ये तो हमने देख लिया व्हाट वर द फैक्टर्स व्हिच फैसिलिटेटेड ट्रेड. व्हाट वर द इंपॉर्टेंट आइटम्स ऑफ ट्रेड एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड में? बताइए, आइटम्स ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट क्या थे? कॉटन हो गया, प्रोसेस सिल्क क्लॉथ हो गया, परफ्यूम हो गया, आइवरी वर्क्स हो गए, जेम स्टोन्स हो गए, ज्वेलरी हो गया, सेवरल थिंग्स वर देयर, इवन फूड ग्रेन्स इन सम केस. आइटम्स ऑफ इंपोर्ट, हॉर्सेस हो गए, सम लग्जरी आइटम्स सच एज वाइन, ये सब हो गया. देन अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट गोल्ड बुलियन. ठीक है, गोल्ड एंड सिल्वर कॉइन्स. तो इंडिया बिकेम अ बिग सिंक ऑफ प्रेशियस मेटल्स. ठीक है, बिकॉज ट्रेड वाज फेवरेबल टुवर्ड्स इंडिया इन अ बिग वे. Pliny the Elder has in fact lamented the fact that Rome say the wealth was being drained towards India because of the Roman love for silks which were being produced in India, silk and cloths that were being produced in India. Write down. सब पॉइंट लिख लो ट्रेड के अंदर ही, जैसे इंटरनल एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड किया ना, वैसे ही सब हेडिंग लिख लो. आइटम्स ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट, आइटम्स ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट. These included cotton textiles, silk textiles, spices, ivory, silk textiles, spices, ivory, different types of gemstones, jewelry, iron implements, along with luxury goods, along with luxury goods such as cutlery, perfumes, sandalwood, and wooden sculptures. वुड स्कल्पटिंग के इंडिया में दो प्रोमिनेंट सेंटर्स थे बैक देन. दीज वर मगध एंड कश्मीर. ठीक है, so these were the most famous items of import. Write down items of import. Raw silk from China. Raw silk from China. Various spices from Southeast Asia. तो some spices such as cardamom, pepper, etc., nutmeg, ये सब इंडोनेशिया से या फिर साउथ ईस्ट एशिया से इंडिया लाया जाता था एंड देन इट वाज सोल्ड ऑफ टू द यूरोपियंस. ठीक है, various spices from Southeast Asia which were sold to the Europeans, which were sold to the Europeans, comma, sweet wine from the Roman Empire, and Aretine ware. Aretine ware. Aretine ware is a kind of Roman glassware. The Romans had already started manufacturing things out of glass. Okay, Roman glassware used for storing this sweet wine. तो ये जो रोम से स्वीट वाइन आ रहा है या फिर ग्लासवेयर आ रहा है, डू यू थिंक मेनी पीपल इन इंडिया वुड बी कंज्यूमिंग दीज थिंग्स? नो, दीज वर लग्जरी आइटम्स. बहुत लिमिटेड डिमांड होता था इसका. राइट, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो. इंडियाज एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड was highly favorable. Full stop. Its exports far outweighed the imports. Far outweighed the imports. Full stop. As a result, comma, Romans had to balance their trade with India. Romans had to balance their trade with India by exporting large quantities of precious metals. Full stop. Subpoint. Writing in the 2nd century CE or 2nd century AD, writing in the 2nd century AD, comma, Pliny the Elder laments about the drain of wealth. Laments, Laments, means expresses grief over. Laments about the drain of wealth from Rome to India. From Rome to India. ठीक है, ये देख लिया आपने. नेक्स्ट हमको देखना है दी ट्रेड रूट्स. सो एक मैप बना लीजिएगा. रफली चाइना तक का है। ये ग्रीस वाला रीजन हो जाएगा, इज दी ब्लैक सी एटसेट्रा। ठीक है, तो ये अफ्रीका हो गया, ये अरेबिया, दिस इज पर्शिया, दिस इज इंडिया, दिस इज चाइना। नाउ these regions were connected by a popular route known as the Silk Route. Right. In the case of India, connectivity was provided along both land as well as sea. Sea connected India both in the Arabian Sea as well as the Bay of Bengal to places such as Malay, Indonesia, and China. So, what were the important places that we should be familiar with along this trade route? Number one, Peshawar. Number two, Takshila. This is number one. This is number two, Takshila. Number three, Sialkot or Sagal. Number four, Madhyamika. That is Chittor. Number five, Mathura. Number six, Ayodhya. Number seven, Kasi. Number eight, Prayag. Number nine, Pataliputra. Number 10, Chandraketugarh. Number 11, Mahasthan. Number 12, Tamralipti. Number 13, Tosali. Number 14, Amravati. Number 15, Puhar. Number 16, Urayur. Number 17, Korkai. Number 18, Madurai. Number 19, Muziris. Number 20, Sopara. Number 21, over here, 19, 20, 21. Barigaza. And number 22, Barbaricum. Few have been missed. For example, Arikamedu भी आप mention कर सकते हैं, modern day Pondicherry. ठीक है. Now, these coastal cities or ports were connected to each other through coastal shipping. ठीक है. The most important port for connectivity to Southeast Asia as well as China was Tamrilipti. तो सुमात्रा से और चाइना से थ्रू ताम्रलिप्ति कनेक्टिविटी होता था. The northern powers also gained access to Sri Lanka through Tamrilipti only. और जो संगम पॉलिटीज थी उनके अपने पोर्ट्स थे. ठीक है. Then the land routes connected the whole of North India to the Silk Route in Central Asia through Takshila and Peshawar. Further, Madhyamika or Chittor was also connected to Central Asia through the land routes only. So 23, you can say, Vidisha. 24, Ujjain. Over here, 25, Pratishthan or Paithan over here. So Madhyamika became the common point for connectivity between these internal sites. ठीक है. The northern trade route connecting the Indian cities was known as Uttarapath. The one connecting Madhyamika to the south was known as Dakshinapath. ठीक है. Further, the port of Barbaricum, which was located on the mouth of the river Indus, connected it to Takshila as well. ठीक है. तो तक्षशिला भी along the Indus river बसा हुआ था और बारबैरिकम भी Indus river पे ही था. So this is how trade from the coastal regions of India could also reach North India and vice versa. Clear है? So this was these are the important trade routes. Right? तो ये हो गया है trade. Next we need to talk about urbanization. So write down urbanization. समझ में आया ना ये ट्रेड? लिखो. This period represented the high watermark of the second urbanization. Full stop. Existing cities expanded in size and population, including Takshila, Mathura, Kasi, Pataliputra, Ujjain, etc. Full stop. Contemporary literature describes them as well fortified and well provisioned urban metropolises. ठीक है. So old cities became larger and more populous. Did any new cities also emerge? Yes, write down. During this period, next main point, during this period, comma, urbanization was also visible in entirely new areas or entirely new regions, such as the Deccan and the Deep South. डीप साउथ के लिए इनफैक्ट सेकेंड अर्बनाइजेशन नहीं था, इट वाज देयर फर्स्ट अर्बनाइजेशन. ठीक है. सब पॉइंट लिखो. इनफैक्ट दिस वाज द फर्स्ट phase of urbanization for the deep south. Full stop. Did new cities also emerge in North India? Yes, write down. Next point, main point. Fresh urbanization was not confined only to the deep south. New cities such as Sakal and Amravati, Sialkot and Amravati, sorry, Amravati कह रहा हूँ, Madhyamika, Sakal and Madhyamika also emerged in North India. Also emerged in North India. Full stop. Deccan में कोई नई cities? Amravati, Pratishthan, etc. These were all new cities. Write down. Sub point लिखो. In the Deccan, new cities included Amravati and Pratishthan. Full stop. और डीप साउथ की कुछ नई सिटीज. राइट डाउन. नेक्स्ट सब पॉइंट. पुहार, Orayur, Madurai, Vanji, Muziris, Madurai, Korkai, Arikamedu, Madurai, Korkai, Arikamedu, Vanji, Muziris, emerged as new cities in the deep south. ठीक है. तो ट्रेड में हमने ये सब देख लिया. Urbanization also we have covered. Next we have to cover trade guilds. What had happened to the trade guilds during the Mauryan age? They had come under state control. They were required to be registered with the local authorities. They had lost their autonomy and were under strict state regulation. What happened towards the end of the Mauryan age? As the Mauryan state weakened, these trade guilds reasserted their autonomy. This is going to be the pattern of how trade guilds behaved during the post-Mauryan age. So write down. Trade guilds regained their autonomy towards the end of the Mauryan age. Full stop. Sub point लिखो. They became responsible not only for regulating their professional standards, but also played an important role in governance and social regulation. Full stop. They once again began issuing coins with the inscription Nigam. So they reasserted monetary autonomy. Next subpoint. Guilds also appeared for the first time. Guilds also appeared for the first time in the Deccan and the Deep South. Subpoint लिखो. Inscriptions in Tamil Brahmi bearing the word Nikam have been found. Word Nikam have been found from the Deep South. Full stop. Next subpoint. Merchants, bankers, and their guilds are also mentioned in several donative inscriptions across the Deccan region. Full stop. Next subpoint. Sorry, next main point लिखो. The guilds performed functions such as setting professional standards and maintaining them, comma, disciplining and adjudicating the professional and social disputes, disciplining and adjudicating the social and professional disputes of their members, adjudicating the social and professional disputes of their members, and even playing an important role in city administration. ठीक है, तो ये हो गया the role of guilds, and next we need to talk about the monetary system. Money economy, इसमें क्या innovations होंगे, changes होंगे, right? This we are going to cover in tomorrow's lecture, with which our discussion on economic changes will be complete, and then we're going to talk about the social changes. ठीक है, चलिए. Any doubts? Online students, Shubhanil, any doubts? No? Chali then. Thank you for your time. I'll see you guys tomorrow.